Okay, this is my very first attempt at a vlog, so I hope it works. I just am kind of excited because I got my copy edits in the mail yesterday, and this is my first attempt at doing copy edits. I had no idea what to expect, and I still don't know that this is typical, but I thought I'd show, if you're interested, what copy edits are all about. So this is what came, this huge stack of my manuscript. And if you look along the side here, I don't know if you can see, but there's all these little yellow sticky notes. And those are all notes from the copy editor to either me or my editor. And just different notes that we had to look over and answer things or whatever. All the pink notes at the top are notes actually of mine. And I just put those on for today to talk about a few things in here. And also I have a couple of pink notes on the side that are notes to my editor about why I decided on certain things. So I just got my copy edits yesterday, and I'm already done. So that's why I have time to do a vlog, because copy edits, really, I didn't know what to expect. Nobody told me. You know, everybody just kind of says, oh, they have to be done so fast, but really they're easy, and that's why they have to be done fast. There's a lot of marks. Well, you know what? I don't know that they're easy for everybody. They're easy for me. They were easy for me. So, yeah, there's a lot of marks on the pages, but most of the marks are not for me. They're for the typesetter to be able to know where to indent and where to leave extra spaces and where to put title fonts and stuff like that, chapter headings and stuff like that. So very little of it really has to do with me. And I just had to keep flipping pages and looking at every single mark and just making sure that it didn't have to do with me. And if it did have to do with me, a lot of the changes were made and I just had to approve them or cross them out if I didn't like them. And most of them, I had no problem with at all. And I was actually really pleased because my editor had steaded things. Stet means, I think originally it's a Latin word that means let it stand. So if you write stet on something, it means that you don't want them to change it from your original. So my editor actually had already gone through and written stet on some things and taken the burden off me to decide whether I wanted their changes or not. So that was kind of nice. You know, a lot of things are subjective. They're just about preserving the integrity of the voice of a character or something like that. So yeah, my editor was helpful. So there wasn't really a lot for me to think about. So some examples of what copy edits would be, like the copy editor mentioned here about cultural references. Like I had put something about the musical artist Fergie in here, and I called it an old Fergie tune. And so the copy editor looks that up and figures out, okay, her debut album was actually in 2008, and is that old enough to be considered old? And my editor agreed that yeah, it's old enough. So we called it old. So that was one kind of change. There are tons and tons of changes on commas. And wow, I had no idea that I didn't know how to use a comma, but now I know that I don't know how to use a comma. So I'm glad to have some help there, and I think I've got a lot of it figured out. There are some things I don't know still though, like before the word to, T-O-O, when it's at the end of a sentence. Sometimes it has a comma before it, sometimes it doesn't. So I don't know what the rule is on that. I don't know if you know. You can leave me a comment and let me know if you know. The other thing I didn't know about is the word blonde. Sometimes I see books with the word blonde with an E on the end, and sometimes I don't, and so all my E's on the end are crossed out. So I don't know if that's Simon Schuster style or if that's a grammatical rule. A lot of things were marked in the margin along my copy edits here that would say S&S style. So I would know that that's not necessarily an actual grammar rule, but it was just their style. Like the word voicemail is always broken up into two words with Simon Schuster. And the word email always has a dash in it. Italics are always used for unspoken words when they're just words that the character's saying in her head. So yeah, so that was those are some interesting things. Let me see if I can find some other interesting things to tell you about. Oh, when I first looked through all my ellipses, you probably can't really see on here, but all the ellipses that I put in had little lines between them, and I thought that they were getting crossed out. I'm like, wow, this copy editor sure doesn't like the use of ellipses. But what it is that they actually separate them. And so they just put lines through them so that the typesetter, when they go through, doesn't miss them. So yeah, my whole ellipsis choices were not completely thrown out of the water there. Let me see what else I've marked down. yeah, all sorts of things. Like any italics is marked in the manuscript. They've underlined it, they've written italics over top, just so the typesetter doesn't miss that. So again, it's not something I have to worry about, it's just something I have to look over and make sure they've done it right and make sure I agree with it. And so yeah, that's copy edits. It just took me the time it took to look through the whole manuscript and look at every marking that they had and see if it needed me to say anything. But I would say there was maybe 100 markings that I actually had to pay attention to through the whole thing. It didn't take me long, maybe 3 or 4 hours. So yeah, I hope that was informative a little bit. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay, I hope this works. Okay, bye.